folks. Nice to see you midweek. I was thinking, recently I was listening to McGilhurst, Schmachtenberger, and John Vervaeke having a conversation. It's about 3.5 hours long. Whatever language they use when they're talking, whether it's the term sacred or liminal, or when they refer to game theory, in particular when Schmachtenberger does. You can pause the video if you're not familiar with these things and go and look them up. There's just a vast literature on all of these concepts. On mythology, on religion, on philosophy, psychology. There's a million thinkers, right? These people are trying to synthesize things and figure out a way that you could bring meaning back into our world and build a better world that's not as psychopathic as the one that we're in. Full of contradictions and mental gymnastics to justify genocide and murder and war and inequality and ill health of all sorts. We're basically, under the current system, brought up to be addicts. The noise out there is the cats playing with some ball. They're playing football in the hallway. Under the current scheme of things, we're basically trained to be addicted to everything. So our attention just flits around from one supernormal stimuli to another, and we constantly are wanting to get something. If you read the Eightfold Path of, from Buddhism, any article on the web, you can look at that. It makes so much sense. It's so intuitive. And some of these moral values, you can call them, or whatever you want to call them, just make a lot of sense. Whether you're talking about Islamic jurisprudence or the Beatitudes of Christ, or you're thinking about Taoism, any kind of Sufism, whatever, or just philosophy, moral philosophy, John Stuart Mill, or anything, utilitarianism. Anyway, there's a vast literature on all of this stuff. But what I was thinking when I was listening to this is that none of it's new at all. We just choose, we have all the tools, and we have all the knowledge and awareness. We know what we need to practice, or most of us do. But we just don't, because we are directed by our culture to be in a state of confusion and a kind of insane state of suffering. And only the psychopaths become the players, and the psychopaths have more power than we do, and they always will, because they play for power. And nice guys finish last, kind of thing. Doesn't have to be that way, but at the scale of civilization we have now, with technology and everything, it's pretty hard for that not to be the case. The powerful play a certain game for control and power, and normal people just try to live, maybe lead a good life or a fulfilling life or whatever. But the basic thing that came to me was that when I was young, I remember, I was reading, of course, but from childhood on till I was 25 or something like that, mid-20s somewhere, I had so many insights all the time that seemingly came from me, from some intrinsic or subjective place in me that was also very, very connected to my experiences and to the world, the immediate, ontology and epistemology and experience in my world, what I was doing. And it was fascinating. I used to talk to my friends. We'd have these philosophic conversations. We weren't scholars. We weren't that well read in anything. But, you know, even as a child, I remember walking around with friends and just having these long conversations that were very philosophic, very intuitive, very deep. And we were totally engaged in it. There was kind of this sense that my friend and we were just completely connected on a deep level, sharing an experience of profound meaning, and just in a state of kind of a state of romance or love, not the sexy kind, but just this feeling of being very important to the relationship, you know, all the parties involved. And somehow later on, you know, you get involved with doing things and you lose that intuitive ability, that general curiosity, that connection to friends, family, and to the world and to nature and whatever. Some of us maintain it through various practices, or because of our circumstances, we're able to maintain a humble connection with everything and a kind of simple intuitive understanding of wisdom, I guess. You call it wisdom, call it whatever you want. But it's hard to, you can't manufacture that. This is all experiential. It's all requires deep commitment and consideration for relationships and so on. Trying to get that back, you know, people can practice all kinds of things to try to reconnect, but the whole world is just trying to pull us apart. And so there's an epidemic of loneliness, and especially in wealthy countries like the United States, suicide and gun crime, but also just mass shootings and you know, the idea that we need all these medications, pharmaceuticals for various things. You know, we have a lifestyle that makes us sick, and then we're going to fix it with a drug or something like that. We're not going to get back to the way things were when Gautama Buddha was walking around chasing down teachers and sitting under a tree and experiencing awakeness for 49 days or whatever it was, until this whole thing is no more. And you know, if you want to see it replaced by cyborgs and robots and AI and in general AI and so on, more and more disintermediation between ourselves and those things that we're supposed to be in relationship with, more derivatives. I just think you're never going to solve the quote-unquote meaning crisis in this particular configuration of modernity. And as we note, you know, we just can't sit with reality quietly and interrogate it, figure things out. So there's so much disinformation about real existential risks and, you know, the ills that we face sociologically and individually. But I think it's good to try to remember your younger self when you were intuitive and magical, and when you were deeply in relationship with yourself and other people and activities, nature, whatever, and you had these spontaneous insights that were extremely meaningful to you and profound, and you were able to articulate them, however simply, and share them with people, and people listened and felt something, and all of us were capable of play and acting and poetry and music, even if we're not good at it, you know, dancing. I remember I used to dance, you know, every day of the week when I was young. somehow it's important to remember that stuff, especially when all this human potential is being wasted on war. It's so tragic, you know. If there's one thing I believe in, it's human potential, but I also know how easily it is to screw up a human heart, a human mind. You know, it's just easy to mess ourselves up or be messed up by the way things are. The trauma that's occurring now in the world it's scary because it's not easily cured. And the result of that trauma is more horror and more trauma. So I watched this series called Them. I think it was on Amazon. And it's just about this family that moves into Compton in the late 40s, early 50s. And it's a black family. They move into a white neighborhood. Oh my God. And it's a fever dream of cultural racism. You wouldn't even call it systemic. It's just this fear of the other. These people come into town, everything's going to go to hell. Real estate prices are going to fall. We hate them. It's deep, ugly racism. I mean, you think about the way European colonialism and imperial powers have treated populations around the world for centuries. It's not hard to feel sometimes that there's some evil quality to it, despite people just being people. It was a nightmare of a show. And I was thinking, wow, you know, when you other people in that way hatefully and you dehumanize people and you're immune or inure to human suffering, not to mention, you know, animal suffering or all the terrible things we do to our environment. It's a sickness, a pathology, but it's also evil in a sense, not in the sense of pure evil, like it's a thing, like a platonic sense of a pure evil, but just these evil tendencies, the fear, the anger, the frustration, the confusion, the reactions, the violence, the judgment. And we're in that state whether we know it or not. It's a holiday season. Maybe there's some meaning for you about, you know, Christianity, maybe not. You know, if you're a Jewish person, maybe you're celebrating your holiday, so on and so forth. But we can't experience the flowering and expression of human potential if we're going to invest all our resources and genius into killing each other. You know, we can't build a high-speed rail system in the United States despite China being able to do it very quickly. But we can invest in weapons systems and we can send bombs all over the world and guns all over the world so that they can be dropped on innocent people. It's madness. And people can't see it. I don't get it, you know. I think it's time to try to remember what you were like as a child, when you had all this potential to become whatever it is you dreamt of becoming, and to look towards the future with hope and excitement and imagination, you know. And then recognize that, you know, these other people, you know, more money, more blood. I always say that in posts because, you know, you're sending billions of dollars here and there for wars. And basically all that money is doing is killing people. I mean, a lot of it goes to corruption. A lot of it goes to big corporations, service providers and so on, lawyers and whatnot. But the actual hardware kills people. And so by continuing these wars, all we're really doing is just continuing the destruction and traumatizing of people. And soldiers are also innocent in a way. They signed up, they're doing their duty. And we were watching, we always watch the Ukrainian choir during the holidays for years, over 15 years or so. It's a beautiful choir. And then you wonder if how many of these kids that we used to watch singing 10, 15, 20 years ago, how many of them got killed in Ukraine, or how many of them are in Dublin or Poland or wherever right now as refugees. The idea that a certain person anywhere in the world has less potential or value than you and yours is not correct. And if you go back to being that child, remembering how beautiful and creative you were, maybe you'll remember that. Because more money, more blood isn't the answer. Have a happy holiday. Enjoy your time with friends and family. Have a happy new year, and I'll see you next year. Bouillon tea out.